Hello and welcome back. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Today we are going to be doing a rundown of Tinto Talks number 68, which details the Buddhist religious group for the upcoming game with the codename Project Caesar. Or if you're a man of culture, it is pronounced Project Tizar. Now, this is going to be one of the major religious groups of the East. You can see that it is going to include a lot of different religions, but let's jump into the explanation of this type of thing. Hello and welcome to another Tinto Talks. The Happy Wednesday. Happy should be capitalized. We know this. One day Pavia will capitalize the happy, but it is not this day. It is not this day. Today is a sad day, sore day, where we talk about a Europa Universalis 5. Now, this is clearly a psyop. We know that the codename is Project Caesar. We've known this for some time. This nonsense with Europa Universalis 5, this is clearly a cover-up. You know, they've done press, they've done promos, you can wishlist the game right now, but this is clearly a cover-up. The real name of the game, Europa Universalis 5, not a reasonable name for a game. This is an anagram of the true name of the game, which is, of course, Reuse Survival Piano. If you have a survival piano and you use it once, you should probably reuse it because those things are expensive. Shout out to Steinway. Today we will discuss the mechanics of Buddhism. In the EU5, it is considered another religious group, like some that we saw previously, such as Christianity or Islam. Here we have Buddhism, and we can see we have Eastern Buddhism, Shinto, Theravada, Tibetan Buddhism, and a few others that I probably would mispronounce incorrectly if I took a little bit of a crack at it. Now, I think that some people will be upset that these are all grouped together, but you do have to have, per the mechanics that are kind of set forth, you do have to have some heretical religions for your religion in order that you might make use of the heretical / heathen distinction that is present in the game with the piano reuse survival. So this is going to, or reuse survival piano rather, this is going to be something that is kind of a function of the fact that the framework of the game is really kind of more designed for understanding religion through a Western kind of lens, and through an Eastern lens, these are really more of philosophies in a lot of cases. That's really not the correct way of capturing it either. It's more nuanced and like more to unpack there, but it's more close to philosophies rather than religions, and so this heretical heathen distinction is maybe a little bit strange in its entirety as it relates to this religious group, but okay, we have to do it. This is the way the game's represented, and so let's continue on. We see a little bit of a deviation from the run that I did with Korea, where everyone was like Eastern Buddhist here, which is a little bit interesting. This does mean slavery will get a little bit easier, as there are more religious groups, instead of just all being Eastern Buddhism. We all have a look at the three main branches of pure Buddhism, which isn't to suggest that the other ones are impure. That is going to be Theravada, Eastern Buddhism, and Tibetan Buddhism, which will share the same karma mechanics. So they'll all unlock karma. We just won't go over that again. Here we have efficiency of cabinet and also tolerance of heretical beliefs in Theravada, and I'm pretty sure they all unlock monastery as well. Efficiency of cabinet and tolerance of heretical beliefs. Overall, this seems like one of the weaker ones. Tolerance of heretical beliefs will be nice if we're expanding. We can see Theravada's in here. And so if you expand into the other Buddhist religions, you will be getting a little bit better satisfaction than the others would expanding into you. Efficiency of cabinet is kind of an okay modifier. There's a lot of sources of it though, and so that kind of like diminishes to some extent the percentage value. Next up, we have Eastern Buddhism. Karma and monasteries, of course, but on top of that, we get max literacy and tolerance of heretical beliefs. Max literacy, quite strong, and also Buddhism seems to unlock several advances that allow it to build stuff like Confucian schools. I think there's two types of Confucian schools that both give max literacy. I think one gives generic, and one gives maybe burghers / nobles or burghers / clergy, something like this, but really being able to push up literacy is quite strong. With Korea, in our Korea run, there's also a flat source of research speed that's available per event for Korea, which means that Korea is actually going to be able to play pretty well in terms of getting a lot of technologies with stuff like max literacy here. Next up, we have Tibetan Buddhism, which is going to karma and monasteries, of course, but also max literacy, and then on top of that, monthly war exhaustion. I kind of think that Eastern Buddhism is probably the best per the mechanics, and war exhaustion doesn't seem to be that big a factor, just generally speaking. I guess we have used the cabinet action to decrease war exhaustion once after like an uber death war, but for the most part, war exhaustion seems to kind of be a bit of a non-issue. But I suppose if they juice it up a lot, this modifier would start to look pretty good. Also, people have been asking about Tibetan flavor. Here's some Tibetan flavor. We probably won't play Tibet. Tibet seems the terrain's really bad. It's really rough. But continuing on here. One aspect of all these is that they share the presence of karma as a currency. So some of you guys have been upset with the notion of these currency kind of modifiers. Here we see karma as a currency, and then also karma as is the same as it was in EU4, can be modified by different factors and gives different effects depending on what its value is. You want it to be balanced, as all things should be, where if you have particularly low karma, you will get a tiny bit of discipline. If you have particularly high karma, you will get a little bit of diplo rep. And if you are balanced, as all things should be, you will get a bigger portion of both discipline and diplo rep, wanting to stay in the third between -33 and +33. Of course, -100 to +100 as your kind of spectrum. Another very important aspect of Buddhist religions is the presence of the various Buddhist sects. Each religion has a variety of different sects represented as an international organization, and the countries will belong to sects of their own religion. Eastern Buddhism countries can belong to a maximum of 3 sects, while the rest allow for a maximum of a single sect. Probably an important distinction. They seem to have the best babes bonus, the Eastern ones, and then on top of that, they allow for more sects. Each sect has a value of favor, representing their influence and support that that sect has, and as well as locations which the sect is present. The sect also defines themselves through a set of laws establishing their philosophies and teachings. Here we do see some laws, we see the main philosophy, and we see some cultural tradition. Cultural tradition, this is your cultural defense. Cultural influence is your cultural offense. In general, I think the cultural defense is a weak modifier, because for the most part, you are pushing outward rather than getting pushed and having to resist people with your culture. And so I do think cultural tradition is probably a little bit less of a factor, but maybe I'm not fully understanding the mechanic here. Continuing on, as long as sects have a high favor, over 60%, they will be able to expand their influence by adding more of their neighboring locations to the IO. Conversely, if sects have a low favor, less than 40%, they will start losing their location. Sects will also lose locations if the dominant religion of the location is not of the appropriate one. So if you have an Eastern Buddhist sect on top of a Theravada religion that is dominant, you will also lose it. Sects can only gain or lose a single location at a time, so they will not completely disappear or extremely increase in size overnight, but it is a gradual process, much like we've increased in size. Sects gain or lose favor depending on how many countries are part of the IO, but also countries actively promoting or disfavoring them. A country can can choose to favor or disfavor a single sect to affect its favor value, although that will also impact the effects the country gets from the sects it belongs to, where, you know, obviously not playing nice with them will give them negative modifiers. You see some of the interactions that we have here: join, favor, disfavor, and leave. A country can also choose to leave a sect and join a new one, but with some caveats. For one, a country will not be able to leave its sect as long as it it is a part of, as long as it has over 50% favor. So if they want to leave the sect and join a new one, they will first have to make the favor decrease. To join a sect, a country must not already be a max number of sects. That's how maximums works. And also the sect to join needs to be present in the territory or the territory of an ally or subject. Let's briefly overview the number of available sects, and this is going to be separated by type. We see the Theravada sects, we see the Eastern Buddhism sects, and I don't know if there is overlap between these two. I don't think there is, and I don't think there's overlap between the third, which is going to be the Tibetan Buddhism sects. You might notice here the lack of Confucianism and Taoism, which we will talk more in depth about at last block of the post, devoted to Sanjiao. Now, if these schools in both Theravada and Tibetan Buddhism are way stronger than Eastern Buddhism, then that will help balance the fact that you can only get one of these sects, whereas Eastern Buddhism can get 3. But if they are not, then Eastern Buddhism starts to look a lot better than the other ones. Shout out to Eastern Buddhism. Some of these sects will be better known by other names, but we will use generic terms for them due to the fact that they are present in multiple countries. Again, Eastern religions are are more close to philosophies than they are to religions proper, as it relates to, or the Eastern religions as they are represented here, in terms of the relative to the Western ones. But here we see army tradition from battles. I really don't know how strong a modifier this is, so it's difficult for me to comment on. This isn't something I paid super close attention to, army tradition, and how good it is to have a ton of it. Obviously, you can drill your army to increase your experience to get this higher, but I don't know if being able to push this particularly high is good. We see it's a main philosophy law. Let's continue on. Some of these schools have other special sets of teachings on top of the main ones, like the ones including Vajrayana, which of course we mispronounced, tantric practices, giving some access to extra actions to the countries that belong to them. Here we see tantric practices giving monthly prestige. It's kind of okay. Tolerance of heathen beliefs. I think that this tends to be stronger than tolerance of heretical beliefs, but it depends, I guess, on what you're doing. And then we have, kind of negative versions of the effect if we are promoting it or disfavoring it. Kind of scrolling down here, we have a religion, primary religion, Eastern Buddhism. I think this is the 3 sects we belong to, and we can do a couple different things in here in regards to our actions as it relates to, we can perform a tantric ritual. This is unlocked by the Tantra sect. We see that our liturgical language is Chinese. Is this China or Korea? I'm not sure. There are also 2 other Buddhist religions I want to talk about, which were pending from previous Tinto talks. For starters, let's talk about Shinto. As mentioned in his own Tinto talk, Shinto countries have the ability to favor Buddhist schools, and as mentioned, that action gives them access to interact with the general Buddhist mechanics. I do believe you get a reward for choosing not to lean into Buddhism, and then obviously you get the school and the Buddhist mechanics as a reward for leaning into the Buddhism. This means that while performing this action, they will gain abilities related to those sects, with some costs associated with that. We get favoring Buddhist schools, a modifier, clergy power plus 30%. Not sure that that's really all that negative. Generally, the clergy tend not to be that strong, but we see monthly purity and monthly honor, so we get access to less of the resource that is available in Shinto. We see here kind of the UI showing the honor and purity in here, and of course, the Subaru, which we are sometimes, by honor forced to commit. It's an off-road vehicle. Sometimes you go off the road of living the good life and go off the road. They will be able to join the sects of Eastern Buddhism, although they can only join one, with some extra specifically Japanese sects. Wow, I just can't read today. We can see what we can join. There are some limitations, and we can choose to join these. All right. As an extra note related to Japanese sects, a Jodo Shinshu will be created as an additional one during the course of the game. Another religion in the Buddhist group I want to mention, and some of you may have already noticed, is the new religion group that we've implemented in China, which we have named Sanjiao, something we did after careful consideration from the feedback we received in Tinto Maps, which is, if I recall correctly, the one that is over China proper. So this is going to be the most prolific, perhaps. This represents the particular blend of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, together with many other beliefs that formed and coexisted across China for centuries. Again, these were philosophies, doctrines more so than religions that were mutually exclusive. Obviously, there can't be 2 one true gods in terms of a Western framework for understanding things, but you can adhere to and believe and study multiple traditions of philosophy or ways of thinking, and also blend them together without such degrees of intolerance, although intolerance is certainly possible in philosophy, but this is a better representation, and here we have one single religion to represent the blend of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. As such, a country following Sanjiao will automatically belong to the Confucianism and Taoism sects, and they will get both the righteous and harmony currencies. I wonder if that locks us in on these 2. On top of that, they will be able to join one extra sect. Okay, so rather than being able to do 3, we will be locked into effectively Confucianism and Taoism, and then we will be able to lean into Buddhism or not, I suppose, and I assume starting Buddhism leaned in, Buddhism is the overarching one, never mind. We're leaned into these 3 and we get access to one extra sect. Here we see righteousness is enabled, harmony is enabled. I assume that these are each that righteousness perhaps belongs to to Confucianism, and harmony and belongs to Taoism. If you were to include these sects in the other Buddhist schools, we see max literacy plus 10%. Would not be shocked if each of these give plus 5%, but that is a striking and strong modifier, allowing you to research quite a lot more in the East here with that modifier than you would be able to otherwise. We see monthly legitimacy plus 0.5. I think that's actually a pretty big amount, and of course monasteries allowed the classic. Here we can see we have karma, righteousness, and harmony as mechanics, and then we see that we can leave this one or join sect. No, we can't leave a sect. We are currently at our 2 kind of locked in sects, and then we have access to 1 more slot. Here we see Confucianism. This is the main philosophy here, or this is the one that we are locked into, effectively, which is going to give, as we kind of thought, a righteousness. Monthly development, 0.001. If I'm not mistaken, if you are at max prosperity, you get 0.005, so this represents, for all your locations, a 20% increase over kind of the baseline dev growth that you would get otherwise. This seems pretty strong. We also get monthly legitimacy 0.05, and then we see some stuff for favor/disfavor. Pretty nice that we don't get negative dev for disfavor or promoting. Next up, we see Taoism, as we suspected. Enable harmony is attached to that. We get monthly war exhaustion minus 0.02, and stability investment cost minus 10%. Now, I don't have my thumb on the pulse of this modifier too much, but I'm pretty sure minus 10% is actually a really large amount for that. So that does seem pretty strong. On top of the dev, really enabling you to get your stab up particularly high. Being a negative stab also for Yuan is probably something you want to avoid if you're trying to avoid the Red Turban Rebellion. Negative stab will, in particular, give you a lot of estate disapproval. Negative estate disapproval will lead to negative satisfaction in areas. Negative satisfaction in areas allows rebels to foment, and I believe that that is kind of what triggers the Red Turban Rebellion, so this is going to be something that's useful for helping you to resist that type of thing. As you can see, the 2 special currencies, righteousness and harmony, respectively, when we have 90% we have 90 righteousness, and it changes by 0.05 each month. I'm guessing that we just get only positive if we are above 50, and negatives if we are below 50, based on looking at these modifiers, which do seem to be at 90. We seem to be getting 80% the way there towards the top end of these things. So I imagine the top end of monthly control is 0.1, and so since we are 80% there with 10% left to go from 0 to 100, I anticipate you get malices of these if you are under 50, but getting plus 0.5 state satisfaction equilibrium on everyone, this is pretty nice, but 5%, but 20% on peasants is insane. You will be able to have really high satisfaction with this. This is quite a strong looking religion. This is extremely strong looking. And this is going to make it really hard for you to rebel unless you have some mechanic pushing you in that direction. That's so strong. This just leads to a location satisfaction being particularly high. I think it's even possible that you would want to weight different pops to have a heavier weight towards location satisfaction, but right now it's super over-informed by peasants, I think, and so this is going to be quite strong for you. Monthly control and monthly prestige are not particularly big modifiers. This prestige modifier is not huge, and monthly control, once you have a little bit of this, you trend towards the equilibrium. It tends not to come into play too often because you tend to be out of your equilibrium. Next up, we have the Harmony resource, where we have 0 of it currently, and it changes 0. Oh no. In this one, we'll give prosperity and development. Is that development on top of the Sanjiao? Are we double counting? We really like the dev. Are we double counting and you have this twice? This will represent a 20% increase in development. Okay, sorry, at 0 you get this. And then above 10 you get minus prosperity. So this is about balance. This seems quite strong. If we get it above 10, we get some satisfaction equilibrium. And it seems any amount above 10 is some satisfaction equilibrium and negative monthly harmony, so it'll pull you back towards balance. And negative prosperity, that's kind of a yikes modifier. I imagine you would want to try and stack such that you could overcome this if you were going to tick above this often. So plus 0.5 above this, but maybe you get pulled back down and then your harmony below 10 kicks in and you get this plus 0.5. And if we have it under minus 10, we again get more satisfaction, and we get plus monthly harmony, moving us back in the direction, and instead get negative monthly development. Yikes. That's kind of a mean modifier. And that's all for today. Tomorrow we will have a post about the process of the audio of the OST in the game, while Friday's Tinto flavor, we will take a look at a Majapahit, which is going to be in Indonesia, and is the biggest player in Indonesia as far as we can tell, because it has the most unique combination of government reforms and or unique texts. Does this give you double the dev, though? This is really the question. I'm not sure if I read through this properly, but if this gives you 0.02 dev in some situations, because we just, like, read it wrong, and this is what it'll be giving you on the Sanjiao, that's kind of insane. 40% extra dev over other people, but maybe we're just double counting it and it's just 20% over. I'm not seeing another thing that shows the modifier for this monthly development, so maybe I'm just going crazy. But that is going to be the Confucian religion. I wonder why they called it a resource when it's like an equilibrium thing, because it doesn't look like you get to spend this, or we didn't really see mechanics where you could spend, I suppose, other than the spiritual retreat and commission religious images. If this consumes stuff for a benefit, then it would be a resource, but it doesn't look like a resource. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and other than that, hope to see you pretty soon in Ryu's Survival Piano out in the streets, and other than that, have a happy Wednesday.